Hello friends, it is Nomad Brad coming to you from my box truck. Good evening, good evening. How is everybody doing? Happy to see you here in the chat, coming in early, having conversation. Happy to see you guys. It's been a while. It's been 7 days. I miss you guys. Just wanted to say hello and let me know how the audio's sounding. It's more elevated than it was previously, so let me know. I can turn it up. If you guys want more audio, let me know. And let me know how the video's looking. On my end, it looks good. I'm getting the green signal. But I did run a speed test before I started the stream multiple times, and I'm getting pretty low upload speeds. And I tried AT&T and Verizon. They're all in the pooper right now. So hopefully the stream will be strong tonight. But let me know if it gets jiggly or if the audio drops out. Okay, let's see. It looks like Christian, hello, happy to see you. The co-pilot of Big Homie, happy to see you here in the chat. We got AJ Scoggins in the chat, pilot of Big Homie, or maybe AJ's the co-pilot, I don't know, but you guys are both hanging out in Big Homie. That's their Isuzu box truck. It's actually a GMC version, but very similar. Charlie Pepin's in the chat. Hello, Charlie. Happy to see you here. We got Polymath in the chat. The Nomad Tim. Diana Saylor reaching out from Kansas City, Missouri. 61 degrees and beautiful. Happy to hear it. Happy to hear you've come out of the winter darkness. Robert Allman is here. Hello, Robert. Happy to see you. I got your email, Robert, about a sticker, and I have not forgotten you, my friend. I will get one out to you this week. I sent one out to Charles Serratos last week, and so I'm making sure I'm getting all my stickers sent out. Robert, you will get one in the mail shortly. I appreciate you, sir. We got Revo Runner in the chat. Dre's Van Life, what up? Charles Serratos, there he is. Check your mailbox, brother. I got a sticker coming to you. The Box Truck Crew. AJ Scoggins says the Box Truck Crew. Absolutely, man. You know it. We're here living that box truck life. I just heard from Suron Dave. So he's getting ready to start his box truck build. I'm going to be joining him shortly. He just moved to an LTVA site in California where he's going to be doing his build out, and he's there with our friend Jason, who's actually building out. He has one fully converted Isuzu NPR, and he's working on a second one. So there's like 2 NPRs there, plus Suron Dave's new Kodiak, plus Suron Dave's original U-Haul. That's 4 box trucks. And then I'm going to be there soon. That's 5. And then Scott's supposed to be joining us. That's 6. We could have up to 6 box trucks hanging out in the LTVA. That's the Box Truck Crew taking over. Happy to see you guys. So I'm going to jump right into it. And then if you guys have questions, we'll cover it at the end. I want to just jump in right away and cover the topic in the title so that folks that are coming in and want that information can get it. So tonight we're going to talk about, and this is actually based on a request that a subscriber posted last week wanting to know about kind of the process of design and layout on a box truck build. So that's what we're going to go through today. I put together 10 steps, and so this is your 10-step process to building a box truck. And so this is going to be more about the procedure and the order of operations for installing things like when do I do the insulation and the electrical and the plumbing, and what about my cabinets and how do I paint it. So I want to try to help lay out for you folks, just so you can kind of, especially if you haven't done a build before, just so you can kind of mentally have an order of operations of what to do on your build. And then that way, if you're a new, first-time builder and you want to get started, at least you can kind of follow some basic instructions, and so you'll kind of know you're on the right path and you won't do anything prematurely and then have to go back and make changes. So that's what we're going to cover. I need to put a little text with that on it somewhere here. Somewhere. Let's see. Can I do... I don't know. I tried to type in the chat before. It didn't work out. Let me try this. Oh, you can't paste into the chat. That's what it is. Yeah, I can't do it. Okay. So right here on the right, this is just a sample of a box truck. I put this together on VanSpace. The software is VanSpace 3D. Now, I purchased this software years ago, like probably 5 or 6 years ago, when there weren't a lot of options. And I think I paid like 30 bucks. It was a one-time fee, and then you own it forever. And so, that was fine for me. I know there's some free options out there that people have used and have had success with. This is just what I happen to have. So this is what I used, but I just want to give you guys kind of a quick overview of this box truck layout. I'm going to use this as a kind of an example as we're talking about doing a build. And so I put this together a couple months ago. This is kind of a loose plan for my next build out. It's not exact. I've already mentally made some changes to it, but this is a good place to start for today, right? So this is, I set up the dimensions. So this is a 16-foot box truck. It's 16 feet long. It is 8 feet tall, and it is 8 feet wide. So I based this on kind of an Isuzu box truck. If you get into the Isuzus, you can get 8-foot ceilings, which you cannot get on like a regular, like a U-Haul truck has 7-foot ceilings. But anyway, nonetheless, that's what this is. It's a 16 by 8 by 8 box truck. It happens to be on an Econoline chassis. That's just what the software had. But the chassis doesn't matter. We don't care about that. We care about the box, baby. We want to live in something comfortable. So I want to give you guys just a quick walkthrough of this design that I planned briefly, and then we'll kind of talk about, we'll go back and talk about all the steps of doing a build out. So in this 16-foot box, I have accounted for a primary side entry door on the side of the box. That'll be the main way you get in and out. I have 2 windows here on the passenger side, letting in daylight. I did put one right above the kitchen, which is kind of nice when you're standing in the kitchen and preparing meals or doing dishes, or at night you're brushing your teeth or whatever. You can look out this window right here, see what's going on, see the surroundings. And something else that you might consider when you're doing a box truck build is when you are parked. If you are ever parked in the city along a curb, you're always going to be looking out the passenger side of the vehicle, right? In America, we drive on the right-hand side of the road, and if you're parallel parking on the street, the right-hand side of your vehicle is going to be looking out at whatever is outside that you're parked at. So keep that in mind when you're doing your build out. If you're going to have windows, I would suggest primarily focus on putting windows on the passenger side, because, for example, just yesterday I went and stealth camped along a lake, and so I pulled in and I could look out the passenger windows. I could see the lake, see everything clearly. And so you'll find in your travels that views out the passenger side are going to be a lot more beautiful. And another tip I'll give you just right off the bat, as far as the bed goes, if you look at the bed in the back, that's what this is back here. Notice I have the pillows on the driver's side of the cab. So this is something else to consider when you're designing your bed. When you're sleeping in your vehicle, again, if you're parked on a city street, typically the streets slope down into, they have like a gutter, and so the streets will slightly slope into the gutter, which is against the curb. So what that means is anytime you're parked, again, like parallel parked on a city street, on a curb, the passenger side of the vehicle will typically be slightly lower than the driver's side. So it's ideal to sleep with your head being a little bit elevated rather than being a little bit at a decline. It's just a little more comfortable. So that's something else to keep in mind. If you guys are going to do a bed that's widthwise across the van, it makes sense to have the head portion be on the driver's side of the vehicle. And that's just something I learned from being out here and doing it, and something you guys might not necessarily consider if this is kind of your first time converting a vehicle. So with this design, we have the bed in the back. I'm going to be doing an elevator bed, so it's going to have a mechanical lift that will raise the bed up and down. And when the bed is in the up position, then you'll have bench seating underneath. And so I'll have a little table that sits out. You can sit on the bench, eat a meal, work on the laptop, do whatever you want. And then at nighttime, the bed motors down, and then you are able to use the bed and sleep. The nice thing about doing an elevator bed is you don't have to make your bed necessarily every day. And when I say make the bed, I mean like you don't have to put away blankets and tuck away pillows to use the bed area as seating. So you can leave all your blankets, leave your pillows out, and when you're getting up in the morning, you just motor the bed up and all that stuff just kind of goes out of the way, and then you have a big seating space. So that's what I have there. I have accommodated for an L-shaped kitchen up at the front. I have a sink on the left-hand side, and then I have a cooktop on the right-hand side with kind of some communal kitchen prep space right in the middle. Got a spice rack up on the wall and kind of a little pitcher up there in front above the sink. I have a shower off to the side. That will be totally different in the new build. I have a new design. For me, it's important to have a workspace, a space like right now where I'm at doing this YouTube live stream. I need to have a desk with drawers. Everyone's got to have a junk drawer. I have one right down here. It's full of pens and paper clips and stamps. So I like to have a legitimate desk seating area. And so that's what I put here on the passenger side. You can see there's multiple different storage drawers as well as an office chair that folds underneath. This is a very similar design to what I currently have right now, and I love it so much. I'm continuing it right on into the next build out. Kirby, this is called VanSpace 3D is the name of this software. Okay, and then basically the only other thing I want to mention is I am doing a full-size closet. It is just really nice, especially when you're living in this thing for the long term. It's nice to be able to hang up clothes, hang up a nice dress shirt so it doesn't get wrinkled, hang up your raincoat, any heavy winter coats. It's nice to have a closet, so I am incorporating a full-size closet right here next to between the bed and the desk. And then one other thing I want to mention, I love having tons of overhead cabinet space, which is what I've done here. So the whole roof of the box truck, kind of like mine is now, you can see I have all the cabinets above here and I have a whole bunch of cabinets up here. So that's all kind of just open space that, you're not really going to be using it. So I always recommend filling that overhead space with cabinets. It's a good spot to keep extra clothes that you fold up, or just storage for games or extra pillows, whatever you got, blankets, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's kind of it. That's just a quick kind of layout of what I'm planning to do with the next conversion. I'm going to have a whole cabinet dedicated to all my solar tools and installation materials, which was the main thing that sparked me, ignited my fire to do another build out. Is I'm out of space in this van. I have too many tools and parts. So this will be the next build. I'll get an extra 4 feet of living space. This van is currently 12 feet long. And so having a 16-foot box, I get 4 extra feet. So that's 4 feet on each side for a big cabinet for all my solar tools and space for a shower. Okay, so that's it. That's kind of my quick and dirty van tour of what I'm planning to do in the build. Now I'm going to look at the questions really quick, see if there's anything that's pertinent to this, and then we're going to go through and I'll kind of talk about the steps and the process of actually doing a build out. Let me hop back into the questions, see what's going on. Adventures with Super Dave has entered the chat. Hello, Super Dave. Happy to see you here. Happy to have you here, Super Dave. We got Let's Go. Let's Go says, I'm new here. Welcome, Let's Go. Happy to have you. DMC Vlogs, hello. Good to check it out and see if it has a Sprinter box truck. Yeah, so the cool thing about this software is it's fully customizable. So all you do is you pick a cab chassis, and they do have a Sprinter cab chassis. And then you just type in what dimension box you want. So I set mine for 16 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet, but you can pick your own box size. So if you're doing a 12-foot box or a 24-foot box, you just type in your dimensions. And then what's cool is all the stuff inside is already set to scale. So like the windows, you know, if they're 36 inches, everything will be to scale as you drag and drop it into your build out. And it's the same with the cabinets, all the countertops. You can adjust all that. So the software is kind of cool in that regard, because you could actually, when you finalize your plans, you could actually use this software to generate a materials list. There's actually a measuring tool that's built in. And so you can like measure exactly how big a cabinet is going to be. And so you'd be able to like, you know, basically know what size plywood you need or how long of countertops you need. So there's some really cool features that you can do with this that will help you not just with visually, you know, planning how it's going to look, but will also help you when it comes time to do the build out. So I think it's a pretty cool software. It's not that much. I think it's like $30 for like a, you know, a lifetime membership. Okay, going back to the chat, Geoff, are you going to have a pass-through? No, I don't think so. I'm planning to get a Isuzu NPR, and pass-throughs are not very easy on those. I probably won't do one. Let's see. Brian says, this is cool. Thank you, Brian. Tactical Nomad Official says, hello. Hello, Tactical Nomad. Happy to see you here. Welcome to the live stream. Brian is here. Where do you draw the line? What size box truck is just too big? That's a good question. So here's my advice. The box truck I have now, and we're just going to talk about bumper to bumper measurements, because depending, your overall box trunk length is going to depend what cab chassis you get. Like I have the Econoline, so my cab chassis is like 9 feet. If you get the Isuzu NPR, which is what I'm wanting to get, it's only like 6 feet. So the size of the box plus the cab chassis will give you your total overall length. But here's the situation. My overall length right now is 21 feet bumper to bumper. I can park damn near anywhere. I can park 90% of the places I want to go. This fits in a regular parking spot. I really don't have trouble with it. If you go any larger than 21 feet, you're going to be out of the length of a regular parking space. And so, like the next box truck up is basically 23 feet bumper to bumper. And at that point, you're not going to be able to pull into like a single parking space. And then basically, if you want to be within 2 parking spaces, you need to be like 30 feet. About 30, let's see. I think about 32 feet to be in 2 parking spaces end to end. But basically, other than that, it's up to you. You know, Zach Zoller has a 26-foot box truck. His bumper to bumper is probably 36 feet, 35, 36 feet. And he drives that thing all over the place. So it really just depends what you're comfortable with. Nod Narb says, are you going to be doing a mini split for this build? Absolutely, I will be doing a mini split. I've actually used my mini split for the first time this year yesterday. It's finally got hot enough in Yuma. It was like 96 degrees. So I kicked on my mini split. I was filming my video for Sunday. So I went out, did some camping out at the lake, a little nature vibes. And I'm doing kind of a run test for this video. So I purposely let the van get hot inside. And so it was like 86 degrees inside the van. And I turned the mini split on, and I got it cooled down to 74 degrees in less than half an hour. So, which is a phenomenal job. You know, you don't achieve numbers like that in a full-size house. To cool down that quickly. So yeah, super happy with the mini split. I will definitely be doing one in the next van build. I love them. Kirby says, discussion of making the door between cab and box would be nice. Yep, so you can do that. I call it a cab pass-through. I have a video on my YouTube channel that shows exactly how I did it. If you go to my YouTube channel and you click on my playlists, I have a playlist that is my box truck, my DIY box truck build, and I have a full video that shows you exactly how I did it. But it's really easy if you have a standard cab, like a in a Econoline or a Chevy Express or a GMC Savannah. Sorry guys, I have like a nose hair. It's like poking me right in the nose. If you have a standard cab, then it's easy to cut in a pass-through. It's difficult if you have a tilt cab like an NPR. You can't do a pass-through easily because you have to tilt the cab forward anytime you want to work on the engine, and so then it's hard to make a waterproof seal that can also allow the cab to tilt. So it's a challenge on a tilt cab. But yeah, Kirby, I would say watch my video. I mean, there's not much else to say about it other than if you get a regular cab, it's pretty easy. And if, you know, like I have the U-Haul, which has a gap. There's a gap between the back of my cab and the back of the box truck. It's about 6 inches. But some vans, most of the box trucks that are not U-Haul, the cab butts right up to the box. So basically it's just a single piece of plywood you have to cut through. And then that means you don't have to have the weatherproof gasket, that little accordion boot seal that I had to add on mine. You don't have to do that if you get a regular box where the box is pushed right up against the cab. So that might be something to consider for you guys. If you do want to have a pass-through and you want to do it the easy way, is get a vehicle where the box and the cab there's no gap in between them. We got John C in the chat. He says, howdy, hope you're all doing great. Also, Nomad Brad, happy to have you here, John. Thanks for joining. DMC Vlog says, good tip. Already have the pillows on that side. Happy to hear it. Happy to hear it. Tactical Nomad says, I'd prefer 17-foot U-Hauls. They seem to offer the optimal amount of room while still being small enough to get around. Yeah, that's what Suron Dave has. So U-Haul calls it the 17-foot, but that 17 feet is like, that's the length of the roof. The floor, I think, is like 15 feet. But yeah, it's still, it's a good box truck. It's pretty flexible. I think Suron Dave's bumper to bumper measurements on that 17-foot box is like 20, he's about 23 feet. So he still parks pretty much anywhere. He's only a couple feet longer than me. And he had no problem parking into a single parking space in San Diego. He just backed all the way up to the curb and then let his rear end hang over, and he fit no problem. Patty S says, if you swap the sink and put it in front of the shower, you can move it 1/4 around and still have access to the cab area. I like it. That's a good tip. Appreciate it, Patty. Brian, will you tell us the price to buy your old one? Yeah, this box truck I have for sale right now, it's currently listed for $49,000. And so I have this for sale. I need to sell it to start the new build, but I'll tell you guys what, I'm already getting so busy. The YouTube channel has blown up the last few days, and I'm getting so many people requesting me to do work. Like, I'm already getting people that want me to do work into the summer. So if, like, the van hasn't sold, right? So it might be that the van doesn't sell, and I might just have to wait until next winter. I might just work all summer, save up, and then by next winter, I'll have enough cash that I can just buy an awesome box truck that's in really good condition for cash. And then I can just live in this one while I build out the other one. So that's a possibility. The new build might not start until the winter. Just, you know, I can only do, you know, what is available to me. Nomad Tim says, just rewatched the pass-through cutout video today. Happy to hear it. Franklin says, have you considered a step van? Yeah, I've considered it. I don't like step vans because they're not wide enough. The step vans are more narrow. Like, most of them are around, like, the living space is only around 7 feet wide. This box truck is 7.5 feet, and the NPR box I'm looking at is 8 feet wide. So for that reason, I don't want a step van. And also, I don't think they're as tall. I have 7-foot ceilings here. The NPR box I'm going to get has 8-foot ceilings. That's huge. And let me tell you guys, when you're living tiny in a van, having an extra foot of headroom and an extra foot of width makes the space feel so much larger. I mean, this thing being 7.5 by 7 feet, it feels large. Whenever somebody steps up in here that hasn't been in one before, the first comment they say is, wow, it feels big in here. And it's because of that extra foot of headroom and the extra, half a foot of width. 7.5 versus 7 on a step van. So for that reason, I will not buy a step van. But a lot of people have them and are happy with them, but it's not for me. Okay, so I'm going to keep cruising, and we're going to talk about... Oh, I got a super chat, by the way. Thank you very much. This came in from Charles Serratos. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the chat. He says, thank you. Looking forward to the build. I appreciate it, brother. Also, if you guys are watching this right now, please give the video a like. It doesn't cost you anything. And it just helps the algorithm spread the video to more people so more people can come in and learn about box truck conversions. Okay, so here we go. I think what I should do, let me see if I can add, let me just do this. Give me a minute here, and I'm just going to pull up a little Word document, and then we'll kind of get into some of the details here. But I'll just put these lists down so we can see them, and then we'll say goodbye to the this 3D rendering here. You've served us well, VanSpace. I appreciate you. Okay, here we go. Let's do this, and let's do this. We'll blow this up. Okay, there it is. Okay, so this is my 10 steps for a box truck build out. So the first thing that I have listed is a design and a layout. That's step number 1. Let me just go through them all. Design and layout, insulation, rough electrical and plumbing, flooring, doors and windows, cabinets and counters, appliances, finish electrical and plumbing, finishing touches like paint, trim, and decor. And number 10, I missed one. Number 10, get out there and live your life. That's the most important step of all the steps. If you don't get out and enjoy it, it's not worth doing. You got to get out and live the dream you just created. Okay, so step number 1 is going to be design and layout. This is super important, especially all the tips I'm giving you guys, they are even more important if this is your first time. Because if this is your first time, you do not know the things that you do not know. And the things you do not know, you will only learn through experience. So it's very important to follow these steps, pay attention, and you definitely want to have a solid design and layout before you get started to avoid purchasing purchasing the wrong products, buying things that don't fit, that you can't use, that are the wrong dimensions or types. And additionally, it also, having a proper design and layout will save you from having to redo stuff, cutting wood, cutting something, a piece of metal, and then finding out it's incorrect, having to redo it. That can be a big time waster in a build out, is if you have to go back and redo stuff. And so you guys don't want to do that. You want to do something, do it right the first time, and then you want to move on and continue. So number 1 is design layout. I used VanSpace 3D earlier in the live stream tonight. I think it's a pretty good choice. You don't have to pay for any type of program. You can even just sketch it out on paper if you want. Now the first 4 vans, the first 3 vans I converted, I just drew them on paper. I didn't use any software. You don't have to use software, but you need to have good things written down, and I mean dimensions. And so, for example, I'll show you guys what we're talking about. So like, for example, let me go back to the box truck image really quick. And this is again talking about design and layout. and discussing why it's important to have a layout and a design before you get started. So for example, hold on. Got the door rattle going on. Okay, for example, when you're building a box truck, you have to make the design, then you have to go to the parts store, the hardware store, Home Depot, whatever, the lumber yard, get your materials, and then you have to come back and do the work, right? So if you have a proper design layout, you can look at this box truck like the one I have here. We know that it is 16, let's see, can I do that? I don't know if I can do this on the fly. We know it is 16 feet. Let's see. We know it's 16 feet long. Oh, it's not going to let me do that. What about this? Nope. Okay, sorry guys. I don't know how to do that. I'm not going to try to learn it right now. Okay, here we go. So you know you have a box that's 16 feet long and it's 8 feet tall. So 16 feet, half of 16 feet is 8 feet. And then half of 8 feet tall is 4 feet. So a sheet of plywood is 4 feet by 8 feet. So you know with the 16-foot box truck, you need 4 sheets of plywood on each side, right? So now we know we need 8 sheets of plywood. And so you can continue on, figure out the floor, figure out the ceiling, figure out the rear and the front, and you can measure all that up. And then you know, okay, I'm going to need 13 pieces of plywood, half-inch plywood to do the walls, right? So, but if you don't have like a design layout, then you're not really going to know that ahead of time. And what you don't want to do is run to Home Depot, buy a couple sheets of plywood, come back, and then realize I need 2 more, and then you got to go to Home Depot again, and then you really didn't even get anything done. So having a proper layout will help you with basic things like having the right amount of materials, knowing which materials to buy. Additionally, you know, we can look at this layout and we can figure out where the counters are going to be, how wide we need the counters to be. And then when you're going to Home Depot, if you want, you can look at prefab cabinets. So the great thing about a box truck, because it has flat walls, there's no contours, you can use regular cabinets from Home Depot. They sell them pre-painted, ready to go. You just slide them into place and lay down a countertop. So it's super easy, super fast, but you need to know how much space is the wall. Like for example here, right? I have this little cabinet here between the bed and the door. Let me try this thing again. And we want to know how wide is that cabinet. Why is it doing that? Switch axis. Let's try this. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this thing. I've never used the measuring feature on here. So it's like, there we go. Okay. Struggle complete. Okay. So for example, I just measured the space of that cabinet. So I see the cabinet needs to be, well, I have 57.4 inches potentially available, right? So then when you're at Home Depot, you can look at cabinets, see if they have anything close. They're never going to have exactly the size you need, but when you're doing your build out and your design, you can potentially move things around so that prefab stuff will work, or you can leave an open space between prefab cabinetry, and then you could have like a little shelf or a pocket or something. So anyway, that's it. That's why I think it's cool to have a good design and layout. It just helps you kind of see the vision, understand where you're going, and then make sure that you're not buying things that you can't use. And then, so the second stage of the build out is once you have your design, your layout, you know what you want to do, where stuff can go, then really the first thing you need to do is insulation. And so I say do insulation before anything else, before you cut in a door or you cut in a window, because it's easier to like put in the insulation, put in the walls, and then make one cut for your doors and windows and cut through everything all at once. Because if you get an empty box truck and get excited and cut in a window, and then you have to go back and try to like cut a piece of panel with the exact same opening and orientation of the window you installed. It's very, very difficult, and it's very, very difficult to make it look good. So insulation first, and I would say even really before you do plumbing or electrical, I would probably do all the insulation, and then you can go back and figure out where you want to do your plumbing and insulation. One caveat is if you wanted, you could, you could run plumbing and insulation, like in certain channels in the wall, or leave those channels empty and then run plumbing and electrical in those channels, and then come back and put insulation, finish it with insulation after you're done. So, you could like come back and spray foam those gaps. That would probably be a good way to do it. But that's my recommendation. Insulation first on the walls, on the ceiling, on the floor. Violet says, do you put soundproofing material under the insulation? Thank you. That's a good question, Violet. I have never done soundproofing, and what Violet's talking about most likely is like, what do they call that stuff? Rattle trap? Isn't that what it is? Rattle mat? What is it? Yeah, here we go. Like this stuff. You guys have all seen it. It's the peel and stick. It's like an adhesive, like a thick black adhesive on one side with foil on the other. So here's the thing. I worked in a car stereo shop for 3 years, and we use these things all over vehicles. These are designed to stick onto thin sheet metal to reduce vibration and add insulating properties. So I see these a lot on van conversions, like on Sprinters and on Transits and ProMasters. And so I think it makes sense to do some of this on thin metal vehicles like that. You don't need this on a box truck, really, because, let's see, the floor is either going to be wood or it's going to be really thick aluminum, so it's too thick, you don't need it. You don't need it on the back door, you don't need it on the front. In theory, you could put it on like if you have a metal box truck. My box truck is a composite of wood and fiberglass and stuff. But if you had a pure metal box truck that was very thin, you could put some of this up strategically, but the problem is it's very, very heavy. And if you were going to cover a box truck, say you have a 7-foot tall box truck and it's 12 to 16 feet long, and you have 2 sides, that would be literally hundreds of pounds of weight you're adding. This stuff's very heavy. But I think by adding rigid foam, which is the insulation that I typically recommend for box trucks, and I guess I should go over that really quick while we're talking about insulations, what type of insulation I recommend. But the type of insulation we're adding is going to be 100 times better than that thin sound dampening stuff. And so I really don't think you're going to need it. Especially when you consider the weight and the cost. It's expensive, and it's very heavy. Two-inch. Here we go right here. Okay, so I really like this stuff. This is at Home Depot. It's called Foamular NGX. But it's an XPS is the style, extruded polystyrene, rigid foam insulation. It's 2 inches thick. It comes in 4x8 sheets. This works great in a box truck because you can, like, for example, if you have a 7-foot box truck, you just cut a foot off the top of this stuff and just lay it up against the wall, It's super easy. If you have the wooden slats running down your box truck like I do, then you can cut it into strips and then place it between the slats. And then in the spaces where the wooden slats are, you can use a thinner foam to go on top. But something like this is a great choice. It's not cheap. It's like $60 per, per piece. But we're building a house here. I didn't promise you it was going to be cheap to build a house. It's much cheaper than a conventional house. I'll tell you that much. So this is the insulation I recommend. And I think if you use this, you do not necessarily need any type of sound deadening. Now, I don't necessarily think you need 2 inches for the floor. I would probably just do 1 inch in the floor. The main thing we're fighting against with insulation in box trucks is the heat and the cold. And so the biggest killer is the heat in the summer. You have the sun beating down on the walls and the roof of your box truck. But in the summer, the sun is never beating on the floor of your box truck because the sun can't get to it. It's covered by the walls and everything else. So I think 1 inch of insulation in the floor is good. 2 inches in the wall and ceiling is a good idea. So that's the next step. Do the insulation. And then if you want, let's see, hold on, let me go back to the list. Okay, so that's it. Number 1, design layout. Number 2, insulation. Number 3, rough electrical and plumbing. And that's the reason these kind of tie hand in hand is because once you have the insulation up, then you can do the rough electrical and plumbing. And what that means, like rough, is basically where you're coming in, you're putting in all your main lines, the main big stuff, but you're running the wires, you're running the pipe, but you're not really finishing anything yet. You're not connecting sinks and faucets. You're not necessarily wiring in inverters and charge controllers. You're basically just running the wires and the pipes. And I'll show you guys a good video that's out on how to do electrical and plumbing. I didn't really do a very big electrical or plumbing video on my channel because I don't have a lot of plumbing and electrical running throughout my vehicle. Like I only have 1 sink, 1 drain. There's no other water in the van. I just have 1 line running across the floor. And then my electrical is basically all contained into 1 area. So I didn't do a good job of showing other people how to install, more complex plumbing and electrical. Hold on, let me see, TCHNO. But I will in the next build. In my next build out, I will definitely have a lot more comprehensive plumbing and electrical, and so you guys will get to watch those videos. So this is Techno Barbarian. He's a great box truck builder and YouTuber. You should check out his channel. He makes some awesome videos, but his build videos are very, very good. And so I'll show you guys what he did.
You to the wonderful.
Now, he did this same foam that I just recommended, this polystyrene. I think he does the 2-inch rigid. But if you see what he does there, is he actually goes through and he cuts into the insulation for his outlet boxes and his wires. And I think he also does that for the plumbing. And so you can see, let's see if there's a bigger shot of it. What does this look like? So you can see here was the kind of the first step of putting in all the insulation, and then he's going back through, mid-transition, and he's cutting in all the electrical outlets and the plumbing. So that's something you guys could consider on your build out, is you can go back through and then you can cut the outlets into the foam. So that's, and I can't copy and paste that into the chat, but if you go to YouTube and just Google Techno Barbarian, that's his channel right there, you can see how he does it. He's got some great videos. So that's step number 3 on doing a on doing a conversion. And so this goes in. Now this is why it's critical to have the design and layout, because you want to know, where's my electrical cabinet going? Where am I going to have outlets? Where's my sink going? And my sink in relation to my freshwater tank and my shower and my gray tank. So you have to be able to plan the location of all these components, and then not only the location of each component, but you also have to be able to plan how you're going to get between these components. So it's definitely, it's not easy. You know, it's something you have to research and watch some videos, and you can figure it out. I wouldn't say that it's difficult. It's not really difficult, but it's also not easy. It's somewhere in the middle. So it's going to take a little bit of time. But if you're dedicated and you want to do it, you can make it happen. DMC Vlogs says soundproofing is good for metal vans. I agree with you. Journey with Nicole in the chat. Hello, Nicole. Happy to see you. Happy to have you here. Long time no see, but I'm glad you're back. Some people in the chat are saying Amazon Basics has a good deal on Amazon version of Killmat. And Cruz from Van City Van Life used it on his new Sprinter, so happy to hear it. Yeah, if you're in a metal van, you know, I mean, that's the thing, is like, you're in a Sprinter. I mean, how wide is a Sprinter? Those things are only like, are they even 6.5 feet wide? They might not even be 6.5 feet wide. It might be 6.2 feet wide. So it's like, by the time you can't afford to put in 2 inches of insulation on each side, you're going to lose a huge chunk of living space. So when you get down into vans, because the living space is so limited, they really can't use a lot of insulation. Journey with Nicole says, I used that foil bubble insulation and it wouldn't stick no matter what I used. Foil bubble, I think you're talking about Reflectix. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Reflectix, I've never tried to glue it down to anything. I'm not sure what you would use to attach that. DMC Vlogs says Armaflex is the best for vans. What's Armaflex? I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with it. Let's see what that is. Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Here you go. So this is like, yeah, I've seen this stuff before. This is like it's just like a foam. It's a lighter density foam insulation. Yeah, that's good. That'll work for vans. It'll help with sound deadening. Okay, RVing with Bandit says, how do you insulate the roof? That's a good question. So the great thing is, any box truck that you have is going, let me see if I can find a picture of it. Box truck. Here we go. Ask and you shall receive. All right. Where's the big picture? I hate when you find a picture on Google and then you want to view the picture, but then it won't show it to you. Let's see if this works. Here we go. Okay, cool. Can you guys see that? Yes, you can. Okay, so here's your typical box truck. So if you look at the ceiling, this one happens to have a translucent ceiling. So you can see they have these metal ribs that go horizontal across the box. They run about every 13 to 14 inches, depending on, actually I take that back. They run every 13.5 to about 16 inches, depending on how big the box is. I know they're only 13.5 in a U-Haul, because in my last U-Haul, I had to notch one out to fit my Max fan, because a Max fan is 14 by 14, and I was half an inch short. Anyway, here's how you do insulation. So all you have to do is you get that rigid pink stuff, and you just cut it into strips that fits in between those metal braces. Okay, so like, for example, let's say this roof is 7.5 feet wide, and let's say those channels are 15 inches apart. So you get one sheet of insulation, it's 4 feet by 8 feet. So you just cut 6 inches off the end of the insulation. Now you have insulation that's 7.5 feet. So in theory, it's the same length as the opening in this channel. And then you just cut the other dimension to whatever the width is of that channel. So say it's 15 inches. So you take the 7.5 foot piece, you cut it down into 15 inches, and then you just push that sucker right up inside. And if you're very precise with your measurements, like the way I did it, I was very precise. So I pushed it in and it just basically pressure fit into place. So the insulation just kind of stayed in place. And then I came back and used tape. I used like a foil tape. I found a foil tape that worked pretty good with my insulation. And I just used that to kind of secure it temporarily until I could put my ceiling panels in place. And then, so you do the insulation, you wedge it up there, use a piece of tape to just tape it against those horizontal strips. And then once all the insulation is in place, then you go back with your big ceiling panels, whatever you're going to use, 1/4 inch plywood, whatever. And then you just screw your ceiling panels right into these metal channels. So it's actually very simple. And you can see why I love building a box truck and why so many other people like working on box trucks. They're very, very easy to build out in comparison to a van. You can't do any of this in a van. It's a total like nightmare. You have to attach a bunch of furring strips and like it's a whole pain in the butt. Everything's curved and weird and bendy. Don't do it to yourself. Get a box truck. I see Journey with Nicole just popped up. She has been a platinum nomad for 12 months. Happy to hear it. Thank you so much, Nicole. She has been a loyal channel member for 12 months. I'm happy to hear it. I think she's our first. Very excited to have you on the team. Thank you so much, Nicole. Happy to have you here tonight. On your 12-month anniversary. Happy you're spending it with us. All right, let me hop back into the chat, see what's going on. I should look also at my... Let me see if there's any more questions. Actually, I guess we'll kind of just get into it right now. The next step, number 5, is wall panels, or I guess 4 is flooring. So we kind of skipped ahead a little bit. Step 4 is flooring. So my thought process is... Let me go back to that box truck picture. I kind of like that. My thought process is... You want to have the flooring down pretty soon because you can't really start putting in any cabinets or knowing like how tall stuff is going to be until you build up your flooring and get it to the appropriate height. And so I would recommend after the insulation, after the rough electrical and plumbing, do the flooring. The reason I recommend to do the plumbing and the electrical first before the flooring is because there's a pretty good chance you're going to have to run plumbing and electrical through the floor. So you want to do that before you enclose the floor with insulation and floor materials. So going back to the list, number 4 is flooring. That's pretty self-explanatory. Basically, what you'll do is you'll just lay out, like for example, looking at this box truck, it's a wood floor. I would just do my best to clean it out really well, scrub it down, wash it out, and then I would let it dry. I would lay, this is a wood floor, so you might consider a vapor barrier. You can get, which is basically just like a thin sheet of plastic. You can get it by the roll at Home Depot. It's pretty cheap. So you would just roll down the vapor barrier all across the floor and bring it up the walls, maybe like 6 inches on each side, just to prevent moisture and stuff from getting up into the living space. So I would roll out the vapor barrier, then I would lay down that rigid 2-inch foam insulation, and then I would put a thin sheet of plywood on top of the foam, maybe like 1/2-inch plywood, and then I would lay your flooring material on top of that 1/2-inch plywood. And that would give you a very sturdy, solid foundation. You can walk on it and jump up and down on it. It's never going to shift or shake or move. And additionally, it'll be very, very well insulated from the cold weather. So that's my pitch on flooring. Now, next we'll talk about wall panels and ceiling. We did kind of cover the ceiling a little bit in that previous segment, and that's okay. Let me hop over to the chat really quick and see if we got anything, and then I'll move on to wall panels. Yeah, someone's commenting about insulation. Ceiling insulation is absolutely critical. It's arguably more critical than wall insulation because in the summertime, the sun is right above you. The majority of the heat is going to be coming right down into your roof. So you definitely want to have strong insulation on the ceiling. Tactical off-grid, your Tactical Nomad official is agreeing. He says the foamular insulation is the best of the rigid. I agree. That 2-inch XPS is awesome. That pink stuff, it's great. RVing with Bandit says, wouldn't you need a plumbing vent out the roof? So you'll need a plumbing vent. It depends how you want to do it. Let me think about this. So you do want a plumbing vent. You don't necessarily need one out the roof. The plumbing vent out the roof is usually like for the toilets. So it depends what you're doing in the build. You know, like if you're going to do a flush toilet, then you'll probably want a roof plumbing vent. And the reason they do the vent out the roof is actually because of the smell. So like your black tank, your toilet, your gray water, all that stuff, if it's just sitting around, it can get pretty stinky. And so they vent all that stuff way up out the roof so that it's going up high and you're not smelling it. I only have a gray tank. I don't have a toilet. And so I have mine vented out the floor. So I have, which it still works, right? It's basically, the purpose of the vent is just to prevent the tank from getting a suction in it. And so as long as it's exposed to the atmosphere, it doesn't really matter like the shape of it. It can go up and down and twist and turn. And so on my gray tank that's under my sink, the plumbing vent comes out the top of the tank and then it 90s over and it 90s down and it goes down underneath my box truck. So you don't have to have a vent that goes up through the roof if you're not venting a black tank. And I assume most of you people are not going to have black tanks. Black tanks are a nightmare. I really don't know anybody who's converted their own vehicle and installed a black tank. Pretty much everybody does some type of composting toilet or just disposable bag toilet or a cassette, but having to like actually install a black tank and dump and flush a black tank, it's a pretty nasty experience, and I couldn't see myself wanting to do that. Miss Mimi M says, hello from Washington State. Happy to see you, Miss Mimi. The Giggity Gig says, dang, this is literally what I have been trying to make up these last 2 days. I bought an ambulance in November, coming soon. I will be grinding it out to get done, and I am overwhelmed trying to think. Yes, the Giggity Gig, this is just for you. Definitely refer back to this video. And the key to overwhelm is planning, right? Overwhelm usually comes from not being certain of what your next step is and feeling overwhelmed by options and possibilities. So when you're making a plan, it allows you to compartmentalize things, right? So when you're building and you have a plan and we have our 10 steps laid out, then you can avoid overwhelm because you can say, well, right now we're on step 3. We've completed the installation, so all we have to worry about is our rough plumbing and electrical. We don't have to worry about cabinets and flooring. We don't have to worry about installing a max fan. So you can just focus, hyper focus on one segment at a time, and that will help you not feel overwhelmed. So it's very important to have a design, have a layout, because that will allow you to properly execute your 10-step plan and avoid the overwhelm. Sean says, thank you, Brad, for all this info, which will help on my first build. Happy to hear it. Okay, let's keep going. Now we're talking about wall panels. Let's revert back to this image of the box truck. I like it. It's a super helpful image. So now we're talking about wall panels. So now when you look at this, this is what a typical like full-size box truck looks like on the inside. Now, if you buy the U-Haul box truck, it's a very different story. The U-Haul only has 3 wooden slats and that's it. There ain't nothing else inside. So it's very easy to just cut large strips of insulation, pop it in, work around the strips. This one has all kinds of channels going on. So the question then is, how do you tackle this to do insulation and to do your wall panels? So what I would do when I'm looking at this, the proper way to do this, and I know it's going to be a little time consuming and it's going to, you know, be a little tedious, but it's the right way to do it. The right thing to do here would be to remove, you can see all these wooden slats are just screwed into this aluminum strut, this vertical aluminum strut. So the right thing to do is just use a screw gun and just pull out each of these wooden slats. And I would probably do one at a time, one wall at a time, just to keep it simple, so that you're not overwhelmed. And so I would just focus on one wall. I would pull all the metal slats, all the wooden slats. Those are just screwed in. That won't be too difficult. And then it's up to you whether you want to remove the metal E-track. I probably would. If this was my van build, I would remove it, because odds are that upper space right there, that's where you're probably going to be cutting in for windows. And the E-track, you don't really need it. You have plenty of structural strength with all of the wood going on here. So my recommendation on this build out, what I would do is I would completely remove all that metal E-track. I would remove it and scrap it, or you could sell it on Facebook Marketplace. It's actually worth a little bit. People would buy it. So I would probably just scrap the metal E-track. I would remove these 4 wooden beams, and then I would cut the insulation into strips, and I would put it in between these metal channels here. And then I would replace the wooden slats, and then I would put, actually, let me think about this. You know what I'm thinking is, you don't need the wooden slats. You don't need the wooden slats because you're going to do plywood as your wall material on top of the insulation. So that will give you plenty of strength. So new plan. And that's why I'm working through this with you guys right here, because I actually haven't thought about this portion of the box truck build for my next truck, because I haven't got the rig yet. But that's what I would actually do. I would remove all the E-track, scrap it. I would remove all this wood, and I would use it somewhere else. That's a good quality wood. I would repurpose it, but I would not replace it. So at that point, all you're going to have is this white, which is probably just the metal sheeting of the exterior of the box. And then you're going to have these vertical metal channels. And so I would cut that rigid 2-inch XPS foam. I would put it in between the metal bays here. It looks like they're probably maybe 14 inches wide. And then looking at the depth, it's probably about 2 inches. So you'd probably get about 2 inches into that channel. A 2-inch piece would fit flush in the channel. And then what I would do is I would come back over the top of everything after you have all your 2-inch foam in strips vertically in between the metal channels. Now when you're looking at it, you're going to see the pink foam and you're going to see the aluminum strut, right? Side by side, the aluminum channel. So then what I would do is I would go back over everything with a thin piece of that XPS foam. Whatever the thinnest is, probably like 3/4 of an inch. So I would put a 3/4 inch sheet, full sheet over everything. And the reason we're doing that is to prevent what is called thermal bridging. And thermal bridging is the ability for heat to transfer between objects through a conductor of heat. So for example, you have the sun shining on the outside of your box truck, right? This white stuff, that's the exterior metal of the box truck. That metal, the sun energy is going to transfer through that metal sheeting into this aluminum channel, right? And so if you don't have any insulation on the channel itself and you have plywood that is screwed directly to that channel, then that heat energy is going to transfer through the skin of the box truck, through the aluminum channel, through your plywood into your living space. So you're going to put a sheet of insulation over completely to eliminate thermal bridging. So on top of that thin 3/4 sheet of insulation that goes over everything, then we are going to lay down our interior wood material. So probably a 1/2 inch, I recommend a 1/2 inch or a 5/8 plywood. Do not use 3/4, it's too thick, it's too heavy, you don't need it. I wouldn't use less than 1/2 inch. It's too thin, it's brittle, it'll crack, you can't really screw into it. So the sweet spot for insulation is 1/2 inch or 5/8, and I would use plywood. Do not use MDF. Do not use any kind of composite. You could use OSB if you want, but I prefer plywood. I just think plywood's a better material to use. It's probably a little more expensive than MDF. It's also a little bit more natural. MDF is just covered in all kinds of chemicals. It's rated for moisture, so it's got all kinds of weird, who knows what, like infused into it. Let's look at the plywood here at Home Depot. Hope this is making sense to you guys. I know I went a little bit into the weeds there with that, pulling the stuff off the wall, but I think it makes sense to me. Journey with Nicole says, it's so great to see how many cool folks are with you live. Thank you, Nicole. Nicole's been around for the whole journey of the Nomad Brad channel since I started doing live streams about 1.5 years ago. And so she's seen it grow. And yeah, we have a lot of great people to here participating, talking with. Super Bop is asking if it's strong enough to walk on, talking about the insulation. Yeah, so that rigid XPS foam, the pink stuff, once you put plywood on top of it, it's safe to walk on. You don't want to walk on it without plywood because, you know, you'll dent it, you'll put footprints in it. It's not really good to walk on, but once you put the insulation down and lay the plywood on top, your plywood's subfloor, no problem. Walk on it all day. All right, let me just hop in the chat, see how we're doing. We're already an hour in. I got to get cranking through this. Also, Journey with Nicole sent me a super chat. She says, thanks for the inspiration to plan so you don't get overwhelmed. I needed that. Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate you. I'm happy to have you here. Thanks for supporting me. Welcome, Jesse. Jesse joined Silver Nomad. Thank you so much. Happy to have you here. Happy to have you here in the chat. Okay, here we go. All right, cool. Yeah, so here's the answer. So we're talking about the walls. We're talking about plywood. A question is asking if the thinner plywood is strong enough. Yes, absolutely. So my walls are framed with 5/8 plywood, and that's what I recommend. Is 5/8. You know, you can get by with 1/2 inch depending what you're doing, but if you're going to be hanging stuff on the wall, like I have not only that vent hood, this stainless vent hood, which is pretty heavy, all my cabinets with all my, I mean, I have jars of cooking oil and olive oil and vinegar and all kinds of heavy stuff up there. And it's all rock solid. And so I screwed my cabinets directly into that 5/8 plywood. But keep in mind the plywood is screwed to that aluminum channel in the wall. So it's very, very strong, very sturdy. What else do I have? I have my TV mounted on the wall over here. I have a 47-inch flat screen TV that's bolted directly into my 5/8 plywood. It's bumping, jostling down the road, no problems. Yeah, no issues at all with 1/2 inch with 5/8 plywood. So if we're looking at plywood, you know, it's not all the same. Pricing is going to vary. You have a couple options when we talk about wall paneling. So, and when you go to Home Depot, there's differences in quality. Let's see what we got. So this is going to be your super thin, low quality plywood. It's actually sheathing. It's only $26 a piece, but 15-30 seconds, that's like, that's a little less than 1/2 inch, so you wouldn't want to use that. It's crazy because I was looking at this stuff at Home Depot a while ago, and you can actually just grab the corner of it with your fingers and just break it off. Like, it's that brittle. It is not strong at all. So definitely don't get that stuff. But let's see, what's the good stuff? The sad thing is plywood is no longer like 1/2 inch, 3/4. It's all these weird fractions now, because the lumber mills are getting greedy, and they ran the numbers and figured out if they skimp on the plywood by, you know, 1/8 of an inch over, you know, thousands of sheets of plywood, they're going to save a bunch of money. So it sucks. But now we have to deal with thicknesses like this. This is 19-30 seconds. Like, what the hell is that? I mean, that's not 3/4. I think this is 5/8, 19-30 seconds. And this 15-30 seconds, this is supposed to be 1/2 inch. It's not, it's less. This 19-30 seconds is supposed to be 5/8. It's not, it's less. And then this 23-30 seconds is what they're calling 3/4. Anyway, so this is the good stuff here, this 19-30 seconds, 4x8, $30 a sheet. They're not giving it away, but this will be plenty strong. You can mount cabinets directly to it. It's not going to break up on you. And so something to consider, this is going to be a pretty rough plywood, so you're going to want to put paneling on top of this, or some kind of a shiplap siding, or you're going to want to do something on top of this. But if you're wanting to just paint, to just put up the plywood by itself and paint it and be done, then you can buy what's called cabinet grade plywood. It's going to cost you a little more, but the benefit is you can directly paint it and you don't have to add any panel boards or any shiplap. You just put up the plywood, paint it, and you're done. And also it's a lot stronger, and it's like higher quality, better quality ply overall. And so you can get this stuff here. It's $50 a sheet. This is coming in at, this is going to be like your 3/4 though. This is a little bit thicker. But anyway, you can get something that's called a cabinet grade, and that will allow you that you can just paint it and you don't have to worry about doing any type of a finish to it. So that's my recommendations for the walls. Tactical Nomad says OSB off gases and it's toxic. Do not use OSB. Yeah, there you go. So don't use OSB. Just don't do it. Giggity Gig says then you get a discount once it broke. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, the quality of some of those lumber products at Home Depot is abysmal. That's something else I want to give you guys as a tip is when you're shopping for lumber. Let's see if this is on Google. We're going to type in Home Depot twisted lumber. It's an absolute murder scene when you go into Home Depot. So when you go into Home Depot to buy lumber, you have to look at each piece of lumber individually. I'm talking 2x4s, 2x2s, sheets of plywood. You have to inspect every piece of lumber you purchase, every inch of it. Make sure it's not cracked or broken or twisted or warped. The quality control is absolutely terrible at Home Depot, and especially with lumber. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's take a look at these images on Google. So here, and I see this stuff all the time. Like, this is not an exaggeration. This is actually what happens. Here's a piece of lumber. Sorry, it's not very good resolution, but here's a piece of lumber at Home Depot. Look how twisted the end of that is. They call that dog-legged. It's absolutely twisted. Terrible. Let's see what else we got. Here's another piece right here. Let's look at this. Here's another piece of lumber from Home Depot. Again, you can see how twisted it is as you get to the end of the piece. It's got a big, you call that hockey stick. It's got a big hockey stick on the end. So you have to look at every piece of lumber very closely and just make sure that it's straight. And sometimes you're not even going to find straight stuff, and you have to just take the best of what's available. Jesse says, I went on to university, but not practical first. So theory of the universe or parts. I have no idea what you're talking about, Jesse. University, I don't know. Tactical, you need minimum 5/8 plywood in order to hold cabinets or anything you want to mount. Yeah, I agree with Tactical Nomad. 5/8 plywood is good for mounting stuff. I've had no problems. I mean, you can do 3/8. I just think it's kind of overkill. I don't like, what are you hanging that's that heavy? If you have something that heavy, you might want to, well, the other thing too to keep in mind is you also, and I'll actually mention this really quick. Keep in mind too, you know, the plywood is attached to these metal studs, but you can actually also attach things into these metal studs. So if for some reason you have something that is just ungodly heavy and you need to hang it, I would attach it directly to these metal studs. And so here's another tip for you guys. Here is another tip. When you do your build out, when it's in this phase, measure the floor, measure the height of the ceiling, take pictures, and then document where the studs are at in the walls and the spacing between them. And so that way, once you put up your insulation and your wall panels, you have a little map. And so you can go back and locate these studs in the walls. You might be able to use a stud finder on these since it has the metal channel, but like in my box truck, my studs are wood, and so a stud finder didn't work. So you'd probably be able to use a stud finder, but just in case you can't, I would definitely take measurements, and then that way you can go back and find your studs. And if you have something super heavy, mount it directly to the studs, but otherwise you'll have no problem using 5/8 ply, or you can do 3/4 ply if you so desire. Okay, so that's the lesson for the evening is be careful of lumber at Home Depot. It's an absolute nightmare. Okay, I don't know who this Jesse person is, but I'm gonna put you in timeout because you're saying things that are completely irrelevant to the live stream. Okay. Sorry, Jesse. You gotta stay on topic. The Nomad Tim says it's true. I've always found straighter wood at Lowe's than Home Depot. More than once, I've walked right out of Home Depot and gone across the street. Happy to hear it. Honestly, I have in the past. I have always just gone to Home Depot, just a habit. Back from my HVAC days, that's just the store we always went to was Home Depot, so it's like a habit. But I agree, the lumber does seem to be better at Lowe's, and so I think on my next build out, I will make a conscious note. And actually, I've noticed Lowe's has some really good. I think they kind of have some better products in general. Like they have a better nut and bolt and screw assortment than what you can find at Home Depot. So, yeah, I gotta go to Lowe's next time. Team Lowe's, Team Lowe's. Okay, all right. Let me hop back to the deal here. Okay, so what are we doing? So we did the wall panels, we've done the ceiling, all the insulation, we've done the flooring. The next thing is doors and windows. That's pretty self-explanatory, but it's easiest to cut in a door and a window um, when the walls and the insulation, the flooring is already in, because then what you do is you just take a Sawzall blade or a jigsaw and you just mark with a template, you just mark the window and the door opening, and then you just cut the hole once. You cut it once, you knock it out, you put in the window, and you're done. If you don't do that, if you put the window in first, then you have to carefully measure and cut your insulation around it, and then your plywood, and then your wall paneling, and it's very, very difficult to get everything to align properly. It's a nightmare. So that's why we do doors and windows next. That's all I have to say about it. There's not much else to say. Then you do cabinets and counters. That's the next step. So the nice thing at this point is you're in a rectangle box. It should be pretty uniform in dimensions. And so at this point, it's basically just like, remodeling a tiny house. You have square walls, and so you can just figure out your cabinetry, whether you're going to get stuff from Home Depot and Lowe's. You can modify it if you want. I've seen people that get cabinets at Lowe's and they, add something underneath to boost the height up, or they add a little piece on the end to make it longer. So you can modify pre-built cabinets if you want, if you don't want to do full custom, but otherwise, not a big deal. So that's kind of the next thing, is just doing all your cabinets and your countertops. That's kind of one step. You do the cabinets, then you get the countertops. And I just like using the prefab stuff. I used my prefab. Let's go to Lowe's. I used just the prefab countertops in mine. Worked out great. I bought a single 10-foot piece, and then I cut it into two pieces, one for my kitchen, one for my bathroom sink. What I really like about the countertop is it's extremely durable. There's like no scratches in it. There's no wear, no damage. They've held up really, really nice. So cabinets are your choice. You can buy this stuff in 4-foot, 6-foot, 8-foot, kind of whatever you need. You can either get natural wood and then you can finish it yourself, stain it or paint it, or you can get laminate, which is what I have, which is basically just a printed design. This is the stuff I have, this marble. This is probably the one I got, 10 feet long, 25.5 inches wide. So that's easy. What's nice about that is it's fast. Oh, you can't see that. Hold on. Sorry, I got the van space thing up. Here we go. We're moving on to the coconut water. Got to stay hydrated. Pretty much out of my regular water. Okay. So this is what I did. I just did the laminate countertops. And it's awesome because you just cut it once. Buy the piece you need, cut it once, or if you can buy it in pre-cut sections, but you just drop it in place, run a screw up from underneath, and you're done. Super easy to do countertops. That's the next step. And then now we're at step 8. This is going to be appliances, finish, electrical, and plumbing. And so at this point, you have the box truck built out, all the walls, the floors, the ceiling. You have the cabinets in place. You might have the bed in place. And so now you already have your electrical and your plumbing roughed in, so all the lines are going where they should, the power lines are going where they should. So at this point, all you're going to be doing is kind of finishing up, wiring in your outlets, wiring in your charge controller and inverter and batteries, connecting the faucet, connecting a shower head, that type of thing. So kind of simple, the simple parts of electrical and plumbing. Lilith is asking where do you get a box truck from? Facebook Marketplace. I'll show you guys. Go to Facebook, click on the Marketplace tab, type in box truck, and then just set your zip code. And there it is right there. And they're going to show you box trucks from all over the country. Put in your zip code. Look, there's mine for sale right there. Ha! How funny. So you can see all kinds of box trucks in your area, all different things. There's a 2015 Isuzu NPR for $15,500. So I like Facebook because they have a good selection. They have all different price ranges. If you need something cheap, if you want something that's newer, you can get it all. Here's a 2011 for $17,000 in Oceanside. Here's a big 2006 GMC box truck for 10 grand. Look at that monster. 18-foot box with a lift. He doesn't list the mileage, it's probably high, but it's only 10 grand. Anyway, that's my recommendation for box trucks, Facebook Marketplace. All right, so hopping back on the list. Excuse me. So now we are doing our finishing touches on electrical and plumbing and appliances. So that would be like, you know, if you're going to do a microwave or an induction cooktop. Because like, for example, the cooktop, if you guys can see it right back here, look where it's at. It's cut into my countertop, right? So we can't put in the induction cooktop until we install the countertop. And we can't install the countertop until we install the cabinets. And we can't install the cabinets until we install the flooring. And we can't install the flooring until we install the floor insulation. And we can't install the floor insulation until we design the box truck build. So you see how it all works? You have to do it all in order. Look at that. We just built a whole box truck. So that's it. You know, you kind of do your appliances, do your range hood, and then finishing touches. Paint, trim, molding. I did a bunch of trim. All the dark gray stuff you see, that's all regular house trim from Home Depot. And then it should be from Lowe's. I'm doing Lowe's next time. I'm pissed at Home Depot. Lowe's forever. So anyway, I did a ton of trim in my box truck. I think it really makes it look nice to have some contrasting colors. And then additionally, it kind of just, it adds a little shape and character because I didn't use regular trim. It has like kind of a different shape to it. So it's cool. It adds a little detail. It makes it feel more like a house and less like a vehicle. You won't find molding like that in an RV. No, sir. So that's it. That's step number 9. And then step number 10 is go live your life. After your box truck's done, go out, go camping, go stealth camping, go to the beach, go to the mountains, go to the lake. Go camp outside your local grocery store. Camp everywhere you want. It's a good time. So that's it for me. That's the 10 steps. The main goal was just to help you guys understand what the order of operations was. This was never intended to be an in-depth course on each step because that would take hours. That would be like hours and hours and hours of instruction and considerations. But I think we built a really good foundation. We talked about a lot of good stuff. We laid some really good nuggets of knowledge down. Talked about insulation and framing and flooring materials, all kinds of cool stuff. If you guys have any last minute questions, I'll stick around for another 5 to 10 minutes and answer some questions from you guys. Outdoors Dreadhead, happy to have you here, brother. Happy to see you in the chat. Outdoors Dreadhead has been a channel subscriber for a long time, probably almost a year. I met him for the first time at Schoolie Palooza this winter in Ehrenberg, Arizona. He's an absolute cool dude and super happy to know him and be connected with him and hopefully meet up again in the future. I'm sure I'll see him again next winter somewhere down in Arizona, if not sooner. So happy to have you here, Dreadhead. Out here doing it. I believe it, bro. Yeah, Dreadhead's a true nomad at heart, man. He just jumped right in. George says you touched on most of the points. Thank you. You're welcome, George. Revo Runner says thanks. Dreadhead, you're welcome. Tania, so interesting. When do you start the build? So, like I mentioned before, I need a large amount of money to do the next box truck build, to buy the rig, and then also put money into the build materials. And a build out is going to take me a few months, and I'm not going to be able to do solar installs. So I'm not going to be able to make money while I'm doing the build. So I have to have a big chunk of money set aside to do this build. The truck alone is probably going to cost me between $16,000 and $20,000 because I want to start out with one that's in very good mechanical shape and has, low mileage because I want to keep this one for a long time. So that's it. I can't really start the new build out until I sell this van, or if I work all summer and save up, then I could do it in the wintertime. So that's the answer. I'll start the new box truck build as soon as I either sell this one or save up enough money on my own, which will take a little bit. Scott Shaper says, see you in a few days. Happy to hear it, Scott. Happy to hear it, brother. Reach out to me, Scott, for a final destination. Suron Dave just got there today, but he's not in the exact location I sent you. He's close. He's like a couple miles away, but just make sure you reach out to me before you actually drive to that point, and I'll get you a new location. But looking forward to seeing you soon, Scott, and helping you out with your build. Patty S says, do you watch Isaac Turner? I do. I know Isaac Turner. Me and Isaac Turner hung out in Eugene, Oregon. We hung out for about a year together. In fact, me and Isaac Turner and Jordan of Northwest Nomads, we all put on our own van life festival in I think it was 2021. It was during COVID. And so me and Isaac Turner and Jordan did our first van life festival. It was like Northwest Nomads, but before Northwest Nomads. That was kind of how Northwest Nomads got its start. So yeah, me and Isaac go way back. We had a lot of fun doing, we did a lot of hot spring tours up there in Oregon, in the area he's living at now, over by outside of Eugene. There's a ton of hot springs, so we did a lot of driving around and camping and just, oh man, it was the good old days. It was there's always like I got a special spot in my heart for that year that all four of us spent just cruising around Eugene, Oregon, camping, hitting hot springs. It was so much fun. Just a wonderful time. Rick Turner says, "Do you think it's necessary to get the 450?" Absolutely, Rick. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend anything less than a 450. In fact, the next rig I'm going to get is going to be the equivalent of a 550. That is Suzu I'm looking at. And the difference is how much weight it can carry. Right now I'm in a 450 and my max gross weight rating is like 14,000. Wait, is it 14.5 or is it 12.5? I think it's 14.5. I think it's 14.5 is my GVWR right now. But the 35 is like, I don't know what it is, but it's not that much. It's like maybe like 12,000 pounds or 10,000 pounds. But yeah, you really need a 450 minimum. Yeah, Tactical Nomad says I only buy 450s, so he agrees. Yeah, I would definitely I would do nothing less than a 450. Oh, Super Dave coming in with a super chat. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you. Super Dave is a huge financial supporter. He's been around for a long time, one of the OGs, and he has been extremely generous with Nomad Brad. And I just appreciate you so much, Super Dave. Thank you very much for the super chat. You are appreciated. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Brian, is the roof material that lets light through good? Should it be a truck? Yeah, so that roofing material, it's some kind of a plastic that allows the light to pass through. I mean, it's fine. They use it on commercial box trucks, but I would probably seal over it. I would get a rooftop, I would get like an elastomeric rooftop coating, and I would seal over it. I don't think it's probably as durable as the metal roofs. So that's what I would do. That's something else to consider is if your roof is in poor condition, you want to put a roof coating on it probably before you put solar panels on. Because once you put solar on, you can't really get access to the roof again. So if your roof is in poor shape, I would put a coating on first thing before you install solar panels. J.H. Bouchard says, what is the coldest temperature you can live in your truck? Cheers from Canada. That's a good question. So the thing is, I mean, I've been in 14-degree weather in, where was I at? Arkansas. I was in Arkansas, it was 14 degrees. And that was in my last box truck, which wasn't insulated nearly as well as this one. And I was totally comfortable just running my diesel heater. The nice thing about being in a cold climate versus a hot climate is it's very easy to heat these vehicles comfortably. Heating is easy. It's the cooling that's difficult and resource intensive. So, but like knowing what I know now, like doing a new build with 2 inches of that pink rigid XPS insulation, I would say you can live in the coldest climates imaginable. You know, you just make sure you have a very strong diesel heater, and those things crank out the heat. So I really don't think it would be a problem. All right, guys, that's it for me. I'm tired. It's been almost 2 hours. We did a marathon tonight. I appreciate everybody that came by, everybody that dropped a super chat, showing your support. Thank you to Super Dave. Thank you to Charles Serratos. Thank you to Nicole. Thank you to everybody that contributed and left comments. I have a video dropping Sunday. I'm doing a little nature camping at a lake here in Arizona, believe it or not. I think it's a pretty good video. You guys are going to enjoy it. Make sure to tune in Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific for that video. And I will be here next Wednesday again at 6 p.m. Pacific. Bring your questions, bring your notepad, and I will look forward to seeing you guys next week. That's it for me, Nomad Brad.